What's going on, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. It's Tuesday, that means it's time to take an advanced look at the collected editions other than Omnis coming out this week from Marvel Comics. So, let's get started. Before getting started, I want to give a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on December 6th. So, we have a digest-sized graphic novel, a trade paperback version of a hardcover, speaking of hardcover, an oversized hardcover, Marvel Masterworks, no epics this week, so, but a couple of trades. No, wait, I was pointing at the wrong book. That's the trade paperback version of a previously released OHC. And then this book that I've been wanting to read and talk about for a little bit. As always, I put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're not interested in a particular title or in case you don't want any spoilers. I do try to warn people ahead of time when I'm going to talk about spoilers and specifically what type of spoilers, if I'm talking about an issue or something that happened previously. But just in case, the timestamps are in the description of the video. Alright, let's go ahead and start with Araña. And that means spider, for you people that didn't know. Now you know. Alright, this week we're kicking it off with the digest size Araña, Night of the Hunter. And by digest size, I want to compare it to the size of a trade paperback here. Here we have an Epic Collection. And as you can tell, the Epic Collection's taller than the graphic novel digest size. So, Araña, $13.99, collecting Araña, the 2005 series, number 7 all the way to 12, Araña and Spider-Man, the Hunter Revealed, number 1, and then material from Captain America, 602 to 604. You have the credits here. You have Fiona Avery writing all of Araña, Tania Del Rio doing the Hunter Revealed story, and then Sean McKeever doing the Conjunction story, which takes place in the backups of Captain America. So, this is a really interesting volume. This would be volume 3, I believe, of Araña in digest size. And this has been collected before in this particular format. Mainly because this was part of that tsunami wave I talked about when I was talking about She-Hulk. Well, that is, if you're watching all my videos. Sorry. So there was this tsunami wave of Marvel titles like Sentinel, Mystique, Johnny Storm's Human Torch. And you had titles like this, Araña. And what they were trying to do is trying to pretty much cash in, if you will, on the manga audience. So the books were released a little bit smaller. The art style was a little more cartoony, a little more anime influence. As a matter of fact, the artist that first started this run was Mark Brooks. And now it's being taken over by a couple of different artists, one of them being Francis Porteca and Roger Cruz. John Boy Myers, that's right, ends up drawing this. So in this volume, we get to see Araña, whose last name is Corazon. So if you translate that, I said Araña was spider, it would be like Heart of the Spider, or Spider Heart. Maybe they took that inspiration for Ironheart. Now, she is part of the Marvel 616 universe, and this is all during the JMS run. And as a matter of fact, Fiona was actually, I think she was an assistant to JMS. So there's a lot of tie-in things in here to Ezekiel and the Spider Totem, and even Morlun and the Other. They play a big part in all of this. So you have Araña Corazon and WebCorp. Now they're trying to take down Jade, who was brought to New York City to work with the Wasps. She has a brand new, what I like to call the Guyver outfit. This right here is actually drawn by Roger Cruz. But Araña feels really alone in this particular mission because she believes that Jade is responsible for killing her mother while she was in Mexico City. So this is a very personal mission, and she wants to tackle this alone. Her father, during this time, is pretty distant, and he's trying to use his reporter's credentials to work with law enforcement to bring Jade to justice. Now, speaking of reporters, that's what this book reminds me of. It reminds me of a cross between Veronica Mars and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Less Spider-Man type of mythos and stuff in here, and more of that stuff. And I can see why this was targeted at a young audience. And for some reason, this just wasn't as popular as other titles. This never got as popular as things like Silk, or Spider-Gwen, or Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew. And I feel like if this had come out this last couple of years, I think it would have done a little bit better, because now we have more of that type of audience that grew up reading manga, that, you know, are going back and forth between manga and Western comics, which actually is the way that I do it. I do go back and forth a lot. I love all sorts of graphic novel mediums. This is the artwork right here by John Boy Meyer. Now, the backup stories here from Captain America have the team up between her and the young lady from the the Heroes Reborn universe, now going as Nomad. And it's a team up between both of these young ladies. And actually, we don't see Araña for a while. And then she does have a bigger role to play now in the whole Spider-Man mythos. But this is everything that is collected in this particular trade. Hopefully one day we'll see some kind of big, thick collection of this. All the way in the back, we have some extras, like this right here. This is the cover art by Roger Cruz, no colors. And then this one right here is by Takeshi Miyazawa. Again, these are smaller digest-sized books, and $13.99. So they're a lot cheaper than the trade paperbacks. Well, I don't say a lot. Cheaper. How about that? Punisher, Volume 1, The King of Killers, Book 1. This collects Punisher, the 2022 series, issues 1 through 6. This one retails for $24.99, and it has 208 pages. Now, one thing I'm going to say about this one before I talk about the book is that this is printed in the US, and I can tell right away because the paper is a little thicker, this glossy paper, and also this doesn't have a glossy finish to it, whereas books that are printed in Canada usually have a glossy finish to these parts right here. Okay, so before we open this up, I'm going to give you a fair warning. To talk about this book, I have to talk about the premise of the book. I have to talk about what happens in issue 1, and there's a big spoiler in issue number 1. Normally I talk about small spoilers or what's happened before, but this one's a big spoiler, at least I think so, for the world of the Punisher. And the reason I have to talk about that is a lot of my viewers have been wanting to know if I've read it and what I think about it. Now, of course, when doing overviews, I keep my feelings away and my thoughts away about what I think about a particular story. This, I have to talk about what happens in that issue to set up why he's got a new symbol, why it's part of that story. Not this one here, of course. Not that one there either, but the one that you saw here. What's going on with that? And a lot of my viewers wanted to know. So just in case you don't want to know anything, you're already picking this up. It's got Jason Aaron writing it. It's got Jesus Saiz drawing it. You're in already. Don't worry about it. Move on to the next book. Timestamps again in the description of the video. But if you want to know a little bit about it, what made the change? Okay, let's dive into it. And I promise it's just going to be the first issue, and I'll show a couple of pages from the other issues. Non-spoilery, of course. All right, The Punisher. Frank Castle is back in his own ongoing series. People, you know, on my channel, and I've seen a lot of other people emailing me that have watched other videos. They're never going to publish another Punisher comic. They're done with Punisher. Well, we are getting a reprint of the Full Circle. So that's not entirely true. And we have a new series. And this one here is written by Jason Aaron. Now, I'm sure there's conspiracy theories talking about why they changed this. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the story and rate the story. Well, not really rate it, but just talk about it. All right, King of Killers, Book 1. Jason Aaron's writing it. Jesus Saiz. Paul Azaceta is doing the flashbacks. Dave Stewart supplying the colors, which surprised me because I had to go back and make sure it was him. But here we have a flashback. And it's probably the most cliched and most horrible flashbacks that you can have for the character of Frank Castle. It is the day. It's in the past. It's the day he lost his family. It's the day when his wife and kids were gunned down, and he's reliving it. And again, these are the flashbacks, so they are done by Paul Azaceta. And it's actually done through his first-person perspective. So he wakes up after this and has just this freaking amazing collage of different artists take on the character of the Punisher. You have people in here like Mike Zeck. You have People in here like Gene Colan, Jim Lee, and of course Steve Dillon, who blew up the character in the Marvel Knights version of Punisher with Garth Ennis, Whilce Portacio, did I say Jim Lee? John Romita Jr., Mike Zeck, oh no, I said Mike Zeck already. Just to name a few, Carl Potts, just to name a few of the artists that drew this. I love this. This is awesome. This is everything that the Punisher was and has been, and maybe still is. So the King of Killers, and I'm sure a lot of people probably have heard of the rumor why he changed the symbol within the story, and it is true. It does have to do with the hand. So I was curious, what the hell would make Frank Castle join the hand to begin with? I promise we're going to get there. So here we have the Apostles of War. These guys are trying to break into this warehouse. This is present day in Greece, and they're trying to steal a weapon. Now the lights go off, and out comes Frank Castle. And he is just chopping people up left and right. You don't hear any bullets go off. You don't hear any bullets because normally when you think of the Punisher, you know he's blasting away bad guys. Here are the weapons that they stole. And then we see the silhouette right there. So this is where we see Frank Castle for the first time not using guns. So this is where we see Frank Castle in his new role. So he's trying to get information from this guy. He's like, go ahead, pick up your gun. But I need to know who orchestrated this. Who is behind all of this. And he's like, no way. Because the guy that's in charge of all this will do a lot worse than you could ever do to me. So Frank, I love that he's picking up the gun with the hand there. Frank just cuts off his head. There's a lot of decapitation in this. I don't know if you noticed or not, but just in case, parental advisory, mainly due to the violence. Punisher is doing what he does best, and he's taking care of the bad guys. I mean, it's rough. It's not a Max title. So Jason Aaron is no stranger to writing Punisher. He did write the Punisher Max series after Garth Ennis left. But it's just a different take on the Punisher. So he has this new symbol because he is now going as the King of Killers, the perfect weapon, and he is leading the Hand. Now, from reading Daredevil and Wolverine, you know the Hand are not the kindest of characters. They're not the nicest people. They're probably one of the most evil organizations in the Marvel Universe. So what could have brought the Punisher to join forces with them? So this is really cool. It's like, he's getting bowed to. They're going back to this secret temple where the Hand resides. And he is presented with a bunch of murderers and human traffickers, rapists, and he is cutting their heads off one by one. Now we go back, a series of flashbacks here, telling us how we got to here, from the classic Punisher skull here, to him just working with the Hand. And they invade his apartment complex, they try to take him out, and pretty much, I love that he's hanging there. So you know that this is just temporary. You know he's going to go back to the skull because it's there. Like, it's in a shrine. It's not like he's putting it away forever. So this is kind of an initiation to see if he really is the weapon, that king that they need. And he passes the test. So they try to take him out, and I mean, he is blasting the Hand away. Again, very graphic content. It's really nice to see that again. It's weird to say that, but I mean, that's the kind of Punisher that we've gone accustomed to since the days of, Marvel Knights Punisher, when they rebranded the character. The other writers in the past, like Carl Potts and Chuck Dixon, have tried to do this kind of stuff, but they couldn't because of the comics authority code back then. But now it's a lot easier. So here it is. This is the catch right here. That this is one of the Hand's witches, and she's pretty much offering him a deal here. She's asking, does one of these belong to you? And he's like, no, but this does. Who sent you? So she's like, look, I'm here to change your mind. We have something. We are going to give you something that we know belongs to you. Again, spoilers. I don't want to ruin this for anybody that wants to be surprised. But this really, it surprised me because he's looking here at Maria, his dead wife. The Hand was able to bring her back. Holy crap, that is a big game changer for this character, because his whole drive for killing villains was, they killed his family, and now he's got to take out as many as he can before he leaves. So how does this change things? There's they get a little Marvin Gaye playing in the background here in issue number 2, and maybe a little sensual, if you know what I mean. But this is where the issue ends. This is where issue number 1 ends. And this is sometimes the variants are collected on the opposite side of the standard edition covers, but this is a second printing. And that's really all I want to say about this. This is the setup. This is why he joins the Hand. Of course, they are promising his dead wife. You know, and what's the catch? What does it mean? How long is she going to be alive? What about his kids? How does this change the character? And who is in charge of the Spartans of War? And, you know, why can that be worse than what the Punisher could do to them? And what the hell does Daredevil and Wolverine think about all this? Man, this was such a good read. Damn it. I really tried not to say that because I try to become neutral when doing these overviews, but sometimes I can't help it. This was a surprisingly good read. I didn't like the change, of course, like everybody else. I'm like, that's not the Punisher. The Punisher wears the freaking skull. That's how you know he means business and he shoots first. He doesn't use blades. What is this? Dude, this actually took me by surprise. And if you've been reading Aaron's Avengers, it's been ups and downs. So I thought, you know, well, maybe he needs a break from this world of superheroes. Man, this restored it for me. Restore my faith. Let's look at the extras in the back, because this is a big book. Let me show you some pages from, and I can show you these. So there's a flashback in each of these issues, pretty much focusing on Frank's childhood. Little bit of a retcon from time to time, but I mean, that's what happens every 10 years or so when somebody's writing the character. They can't talk about the character like he fought in the original war, right, that they wrote him in, so they have to tweak some things. But let me show just how great Jesus Saiz's artwork is. There are times here, I can't show you, that it surprised me that it was Dave Stewart because the colors looked a lot more almost computer generated, if you will. But still some great artwork. Alright, let's look in the back here. Making sure I don't spoil anything. These are the variant covers. And spoiled by spoiling issue number 2 or 3. No, you're good, you're good. So again, $24.99, 208 pages, and that is Punisher Volume 1, The King of Killers. Volume 1! Can't wait to read Volume 2. Inferno has finally come to trade paperback format. This is the exact same content that was collected in the oversized hardcover. If you want to go back and watch that, I think the Astonishing Melanie and I did have like a non-spoilery and a spoilery part of this book, so I'm not really going to focus on this much, besides show off what the artwork and colors look like in this particular version. So if you have not read House of X or X-Men during the Dawn of X and Reign of X, if you've not read X of Swords or even the Hellfire Gala, I suggest not reading this, because this is the conclusion to Jonathan Hickman's run on X-Men, this particular era of X-Men that a lot of us have come to know as X-Men. Now, I say conclusion, but probably for now. I can actually see him going back one day when it's a big event thing that needs to tie everything up, or whenever we need the status quo reset again. I can see him going back to that. But here it is, Inferno. The designs of this, again, is done by, I believe it's Tom Mueller that does the designs of this, as well as the designs of the hardcover. But here's all the credits. You have the writer, of course, being Jonathan Hickman, Valerio Schitti, Stefano Caselli, R.B. Silva, Caselli, and Valerio Schitti doing the pencils for different issues, and the inker Adriano Di Benedetto and David Curiel doing the colors here. So again, if you've not read the Reign of X era, or X-Men by Hickman, or House and Powers of X, or House and Powers of 10, then do not read this. This is the tail end of that story. This is where everything comes to an end for now. So this is the story of Moira McTaggart. It is the story of how she finds out that the X-Men have broken an oath that they promised her within the pages of House and Powers of X. And in this world of Krakoa, I'm sure most of you know by now, it's been a couple of years, but characters can come back from the dead. Like, they actually have a way they can come back from the dead. Is that still the same, though, when I go and read Immortal X-Men? Maybe. But Part of the deal was that they don't bring back any precogs. Like, they cannot bring back anybody that can see the future. So one of those people is, of course, Destiny. And Destiny and Mystique have a long history together. She's a character that has been gone for quite a number of years. I want to say, was it Uncanny 255, I think? But that oath is broken. And how that oath is broken, you can find out for yourself, because this freaking story has a lot of twists and turns. Not as many as things as House and Powers of X, but then again, what really does? And there's really not that many shocking moments and badass moments here, but there are some really great moments that set up what the future of these characters are going to be. So Moira feels like she's been betrayed by both Xavier and Magneto, and that's what this is. This is her finding out about all this, that she was brought back to life, and you can, like I said, find out for yourself how all that happened. And how she decides to deal with it. Does she want to burn everything to the ground or just leave everything behind? Well, one way to find out. This version here has all 4 issues. It has 224 pages. Let's look at the extras in the back. Again, if you want to check out a more in-depth overview of this, I'll leave the link above. Or maybe I already did. These are the variants. What did I say? 224 pages. Retails for $34.99. And collects the 4-issue miniseries of Inferno. Here are all the variants in thumbnail size and in splash page size. And what other X titles are available? We have arrived at that time of the video where I remind people to smash that like button, please, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're enjoying the content we're putting out, ring that bell for notifications. That lets you know when our videos are going live. Alright, let's continue this journey. Next up, we have Immortal X-Men Volume 1. And before I go and talk about this one, I really have to talk about the things that happened before this book. And that is during this House and Powers of X era, the Reign of X era, the Dawn of X, the Trials of X is what's happening now. Because that's when this series starts. That's when Immortal X-Men starts. So even though I'm not going to do a deep dive into what exactly is happening here, with the exception of the first issue, because it sets up what the rest of the series is about, I am going to be talking about some of the things that happened leading up to this. Nothing major, no big reveals or anything like that. But I guess it really depends. If you haven't read X-Men in 3 years, this makes it really difficult to talk about these books. It's not like I'm talking about a book that came out 30, 40 years ago. And this really relies heavily on you reading what's going on in X-Men recently. And I don't know if I can do it justice without going into just a little bit of spoilers as to what's happened before this. So just in case, I'm not going to go into details as to how some of these things happened or when it happened per se, but it happened before this. That's all I will say. Okay, so Immortal X-Men. Kieran Gillen is back writing X-Men. Hell yes. Love that. You have Lucas Werneck drawing issues 1 through 3 and issue number 6. And then you have Michelle Bandini drawing issues 4 and 5. Here's your color artist and the cover art. And the design, of course, being Tom Mueller. Collecting the first 6 issues of this new ongoing series. And this is during the Trials, I guess it's Trial of X era. And this one has 184 pages and retails for $19.99. So, you must read at least X Lives of Wolverine and X Deaths of Wolverine before reading this. So, in case you want a quick little recap as to what you must read before this, House of X and Powers of X. X-Men by Jonathan Hickman. Those are important. X of Swords, definitely important. Hellfire Gala, sure, because Emma Frost plays a part in this. And then Inferno. And then X Lives of Wolverine and X Deaths of Wolverine before reading this. Now, during one of those events, we lost Apocalypse. He went away. He went over to another island, if you will. Not going to go into details as to why or when it took place, but it was during that time. Here we start in 1919 with this gentleman right here that looks an awful lot like Mr. Sinister. And we have this young lady approach him. And this young lady, as it turns out to be, is Irene, and someone that will be named Destiny. And she's telling him about an upcoming war, and he's like, what? What are you talking about? And she's like, I want to tell you something. And she whispers something in his ear that leads him to just completely fall apart and die. In comes Mystique, and she's like, what did you do to him? What did you tell him? And she makes her promise that no matter how long they live, no matter what happens, that she never asks her again what she told Mr. Sinister, or Nathaniel Essex as he's known during this time. So, we move on to present day. Chapter 1. Here are the key players. So, something you may notice is that the key players of this particular series is none other than your Quiet Council. And it starts off with Mr. Sinister. Of course, he's scheming some kind of plot, and it's a really cool twist. I'm not going to reveal the big twist at the very end as to what he is scheming. You have Magneto, and Magneto's like, yo, I'm done. I'm going to retire. I'm stepping away from the council. And if you can see, if you want to get caught up, in case you don't know who the recent council members, that's all right there. But he wants to step away from the council. He wants to retire. He wants to move over to Araco. And Professor X is like, are you sure you want to do this? Everybody's like, I don't know. This is a really weird announcement. But he's like, no, I'm being serious. I'm ready to move down. I've done my part building this nation of Krakoa. So it's my turn to go and retire. Now, Mr. Sinister thinks how this is going to play out. And that's basically because he knows a lot of what Destiny was bringing to the table. Destiny is a soothsayer. She is your precog. She's the one that can tell the future. But as this series provides, her power is a lot more complicated than telling what the future is going to be. So to replace Magneto, and also Apocalypse, because I mentioned that Apocalypse was, well, he left. And you can find out why through one of those many events that happen. There are a series of mutants that want to join the Quiet Council. But there's one in particular that is on Mr. Sinister's mind, and that is the character of Hope. Well, a lot of people still think is the Messiah. For example, Exodus still thinks of her as the Messiah. So they invite her in. However, Selene, the Black Queen from the Hellfire Club, decides that it's her turn to step into the council. And she is using the events of X of Swords and what happened to the externals in that event as kind of like the, hey, if you don't let me in the council, let's just say some things can go bad. So, like everything else that happens in this island, the Quiet Council takes a vote as to who gets in. And as it turns out, Mr. Sinister is really surprised by Destiny's vote, because he could have sworn that she would have voted Hope into the Quiet Council. So he starts to see maybe a difference in what was prophesized by Destiny and what is actually coming to be. So he's a little confused. And of course, this island, I swear, these giant monsters, these kaiju are just drawn to it. So this is what Selene opens and lets this giant monster attack this island of Krakoa. So now the Quiet Council has made its decision as to who the newest member is going to be. And Mr. Sinister's checking up on his scheme, and you can find out what that is. That's the final issue, number 1. Here's the fight. This is what the artwork looks like. So this really tells the story of the Quiet Council. It dives a little more into the past of Irene and of Mystique, Raven, and how long they've known each other, how long they've been alive, and what her powers really are, how her powers have changed. It dives a little bit into Mr. Sinister's past. Exodus gets an awesome chapter in this that I was so happy to see return to this particular era that I enjoyed, that they did very little of. So I'm glad that Gillen is able to go back to that era. And I've always been a big fan of his writing, the way that he writes X-Men. I thought his run on Uncanny X-Men is one of the most underrated runs of X-Men, up there with Mike Carey. And he is the one that gave us the sassy Sinister. Alright, but this is all I will show as far as the artwork and the flashbacks. Let's look at the extras in the back. It's getting a little harder to talk about these books. I may just have to warn people ahead of time that I have to talk about spoilers, like big spoilers. There's all the Mark Brooks covers. Whoa! Emma! My goodness. It's the Phil Noto cover right there. Variants. Thumbnail variants, and you get some splash page variants. Again, the book has 184 pages and retails for $19.99, and that is Immortal X-Men. Marvel Masterworks, the Invincible Iron Man Volume 15. This is the direct market cover. There's always a standard edition cover that comes with these. But this collects issues 145 to 157 of the Invincible Iron Man. And this is what it looks like underneath the dust jacket. The retail price of this one is $75, and this one has 344 pages. This here collects issues 145 to 157 of the Invincible Iron Man. So we're looking at the David Michelinie, Bob Layton era, the John Romita Jr. era, the tail end of that era. There is an introduction here by David Michelinie talking about his time writing these stories with Bob Layton, why they both decided to leave the book, and how he actually has an extra issue after he left the book because they needed that time for the new creative team, and what his favorite story of Iron Man was that he ever wrote, and if he was ever going to come back or not. This, to me, is probably my favorite John Romita Jr. artwork era, and that's mainly due to the finishes or the inks by Bob Layton. I really liked how he made his artwork look. Like, John Romita's artwork just looked so slick, so smooth. It was just a clear, crisp image of these characters. The layouts for the panels were done so well that they were easy to follow. But it all starts off with Tony Stark going to a science fair, and of course, they get a bunch of armored punks in there trying to steal some things. This all leads to a two-parter with the return of Whiplash, now going as Blacklash. And again, focusing on this beautiful artwork. And if you're one of those people that is a double dipper, some of the stories in here have already been collected. Well, actually, all these have already been collected in the Omnibus, but some of them have been collected in the Marvel Premiere Doom Quest hardcover. This collects issues 149 and 150, and 249 to 250, which are the big fights against Doom, which we are going to be talking about in here because those are some of the best stories that David Michelinie, Bob Layton, and John Romita Jr. worked on. So actually, let's get to those right here. But man, this artwork was actually really killer. What is this? The Costa Diablo storyline right there, where he goes to a fictional Central America country. And he goes and helps out. Oh, this also has the debut of the stealth armor, which always was such a slick armor to me. I love the way that just the design looked. All right, so here we have the beginning of this big anniversary issue, and this is Doom Quest. So it is Iron Man and Doctor Doom fighting, of course. This is all about how Doctor Doom is trying to go back in time to learn the arcane arts of trying to bring his mother back from the dead, or trying to get her out of hell, pretty much. Which we see from time to time him doing. And it happens through many stories. Well, it doesn't matter who the writers are. One of my favorites, of course, being the Triumph and Torment by Roger Stern. It's a phenomenal story if you've not read it. So, both of these characters, what ends up happening is they get caught in this machine, and the machine takes them back to another time. And the machine gets destroyed at the end of issue 149, so those characters are never seen from again, or heard from again. Psych, I'm just playing. Even if you're not caught up with Marvel Comics, both of them are back in modern time. So here is the big fight. This is the big fight in issue 150. This takes us back to the days of King Arthur. So you get to see Morgana Le Fay. You see Doctor Doom sign on to be with her. And you see Iron Man siding with King Arthur. And of course hitting on all the ladies. But Morgana Le Fay, man, she is... Woo! My goodness. It's curves. That skull. Yes, and Doctor Doom sides with her. He was like, this is what I want. I want to help my mother. And she's like, of course, if you help me destroy my mortal enemy, King Arthur. Deal. So both of them kind of have a big role to play in this big battle that's going to take place. You have Iron Man on King Arthur's side and Doctor Doom on Morgana Le Fay's side. Then we have issue 151, which is a really cool issue because this issue has Scott Lang. And he plays like a big role in this. And that's probably because David Michelinie co-created the character and wanted to use him on an ongoing series. But Marvel kept saying no, so he was like, okay, I'll just make him a character that works at Stark Enterprises. And he'll go on mighty misadventures there as Ant-Man. So this is where he kind of plays a secondary role. Oh, yes, this right here, the stealth armor. It's so freaking awesome. Just look at that. Yes, I realize it's just a different color scheme. It's probably just a regular design for an Iron Man armor, but it's so cool. Now, there are some flaws with this armor. It's a stealth armor. He's going to go and break out his one of his girlfriends during this particular time. We get the return of the living laser, and then we eventually get the return of the unicorn in here. And yes, this is the last part of David Michelinie's run. Once Bob Layton leaves as co-plotter, he decides to leave as the plotter and writer of this ongoing series and go and work on something else. And this is before, by the way, James Rhodes became War Machine. This is before he became Iron Man for a while, when he replaced Tony Stark. Alan Kuperberg steps in as a plot and penciler for this particular issue, and I believe this one's scribed by David Michelinie. And I'll be 100% serious. I had no idea that Alan Kuperberg had passed away until I read the bios back here, which we'll get to in a second. Here's original artwork, some sketches, and layouts. This is the Luke McDonnell issue. He did issue 151, the fill-in issue with Scott Lang. Alan Kuperberg right here. I had no idea that he had passed away, man. 20th anniversary. This is the 1981 calendar. The many different collections of Iron Man and Doctor Doom, because it is a very popular collection. The sequel has been collected in Epic Collections from issue 250, but not the original. That has not been collected. This is the introduction right here, and the bios. And this is when I found out that he had passed away. He passed away in 2015. I had no idea. Always enjoyed his artwork. I liked his run on Defenders and Doctor Strange, but I remember him from Blue Devil. He did Invaders, but always liked his runs. And then what other Marvel Masterworks are available right here. But this is the latest Iron Man, Volume 15. We're up to issue 157 now. Last but certainly not least is the Immortal Hulk, oversized hardcover, Volume 5. The finale. This is it. Matter of fact, I think this is the cover to the 50th issue. So, if you've not read anything before this, you're waiting for the omnibus, you don't want to know anything about this, step out. Go to the next book. Wait, you can't. This is the last book. Hit that like button. That's what I meant to say before you left. I'm not going to talk much about this because this is really hard to talk about without talking about the other stuff that happened before this. I'm just going to show off some of the pages of the artwork and stuff. But just in case you're wondering. And this wraps up this amazing run. And, to a lot of people, this is like a modern masterpiece. How this character of Hulk has had, very successful runs. You have a lot of writers that have had really amazing runs, whether it was Bill Mantlo or Peter David, Greg Pak came in, Bruce Jones. And then you had a bunch of phenomenal writers like Mark Waid and Jason Aaron come in. But for some reason, nobody really dug their runs. Nobody really talked about their runs. So it had been a while since we've had a long run of Hulk. Until this gentleman, Al Ewing, now finally getting all the praise that he deserves because of this book. So this book brings it back to the body horror, the psychological horror. It just becomes this existential crisis, a trip inside of your mind. And it's just such a good book. Does it remain as good as the first 25 issues? To a lot of people, probably not. It probably took a dip in that big 25th issue that got all... I keep saying Alan Moore-ish, like that's a verb. But for people that have read enough Alan Moore, you know probably what I'm talking about when you read the big... I think it was the 25th issue. When you read that issue, you're like, oh, okay, that's where we're going with this. Woo! Why does Hulk look like this? Is really any of this taking place in the real world, or is all this taking place inside of the Hulk's mind? You can find out for yourself. It is worth the read. I 100% recommend it. If you want to try it out, try out the trade paperback. It is available digitally, but this is the home of collected editions. I know several of my viewers have been collecting them in oversized hardcover format. Just making sure that I don't spoil anything big by flipping through the next pages. This is the only issue that Joe Bennett didn't draw right here, but everything else is drawn by him. And it's just got some killer artwork. Very creepy artwork too, especially the more you read about it. You have the return of Gamma Flight right here with Henry Gyrick. The UFOs make a return, but these aren't the only characters that come back. There are a lot of characters that make a surprise return in this particular series that I think ties it in rather nice. I've always said the best way to describe a writer taking over a book for a long period of time is that The writer has to realize that these toys do not belong to him. He can play with the toys as long as he puts the toys back in the toy box for the next writer to come and play with them. That's how it's always been done. And I think it wraps up like that. It wraps up in a nice place for the next writer. And of course, the next writer was Donny Cates. But, like some people probably already know, Donny Cates has left the book. And now, actually, the artist, Ryan Ottley, has also left the book. So I don't know what the future of the Incredible Hulk is going to hold. This is 304 pages and retails for $34.99. Let's look at the extras. Apologies, it's $39.99. This is that's a take on the Amazing Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane right there. I'm surprised they didn't do an after. It's when he had the cosmic powers. These are the variant covers back here. More variant covers. That's Gary Frank. That one's cool. Chris Lee. There's the original Hulk. The Hidden Gem variants right there by Jack Kirby. And the Foreshadow variant, this is, of course, what Donny Cates' Hulk looks like. Ryan Stegman doing that. It does come with a dust jacket, and underneath the dust jacket is the exact same image as you get on the dust jacket, which is the image to issue number 50. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And those were the collected editions for the week of December 6th. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking these up, if you already have the Marvel Premiere, the Omnibus, and you're okay with that, or if you are getting the Marvel Masterworks of Iron Man. What you thought of any of these books, if you've read them, if you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Smash that like button. Check us out on Patreon, where we have different tiers starting at $1, $5, $7.77, $10, and $25. And each tier has different benefits. And we're also on Spreadshop, where you can get our logos and designs on t-shirts and stickers, hats, coffee mugs, can't remember what else. Something like that. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.